Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 4183. Today's date is July 31, 2026. It's been almost like a night at 9:29 p.m. All right, let's just jump into the question. All right, let's go. Wait, there is a question. All right, yeah. The question is, can user delete artifact? Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? Uh, I wanted to build a Adam. What is Adam? Adam is a AI. It can predict the future. Why are you kind of like making such a AI that could predict the future? I realized that when we are trying to execute any kind of like a policy, any kind of like a bill, any kind of like a laws, it comes with the consequences. Your intention was kind of like a very noble to kind of like a create the policy and things and that, but sometimes in execution there is a kind of like a hidden laws or hidden flaws or hidden kind of like a things that while executing or while preparing we do not know that what might gonna happen. Okay, yeah, like basically is this thing that na ki in the PowerPoint presentation everything kind of like a sounds so cool, sounds so like everything kind of like looks so pretty, but when we try to implement in real world we realize that it's not that cool. There is a kind of like some sort of flaws and things and that, and because of this thing the execution that we kind of like think is not the way that it should supposed to be. There is a kind of like some sort of like a error actually happen or something happened. Okay, yeah. Like basically it's this thing that key let's take a the politician in here are like I'm kind of like giving you example. I'm belong to the India, by the way. So politicians are here are kind of like a something doing playing very dirty politics. They are kind of like a something giving money to the women for votes. Okay, yeah, they could directly kind of like give the money to their bank account, and in return they are kind of like asking for vote, which is really not so good because giving free money to the people it's make them more poor. So it doesn't really make sense at all right, yeah. Why does people do that thing? Why does politician do that thing? Because they want vote. Okay, yeah, they want kind of like a vote bank and things and that. Okay, like these are kind of like a simply like not just kind of like a, such a laws, but there are so many kind of not laws but so many kind of like a simply execution in business or in whatever it is. When you try to decide you don't know what might gonna impact in real life. Okay, yeah, because in the PowerPoint presentation we might think that oh, it sounds so cool, this happened, this will gonna happen, this will gonna happen, this will gonna happen, but there are so many not so sure. Okay, yeah, because there are kind of like a, some sort of hidden clause or hidden kind of like a things that while executing we don't know, because there are kind of like a millions of consequences that people might gonna use your law for like a, yeah. All right, like basically if the government kind of like decided that giving the free LPG cylinder to the citizen of India, which is very noble, by the way, like a LPG cylinder is not only kind of like a simply create a less kind of like a health hazard to the people. Because of that key, like usually kind of like most of people are kind of like using a conventional way of kind of like a simply chulha or things like that, and which kind of like a create smoke particle, which not only kind of like a and not only kind of like a effect on the women health but as also kind of like a pollution point of perspective. So giving LPG cylinder is a kind of like solving both the problem at the same time, right? So your action is very noble, your thoughts is very noble, and people are kind of like implementing these laws is also very noble too. Okay, yeah, but some people might gonna utilize this kind of like a laws for wrong purposes. Like basically people might gonna kind of like a sell the free cylinder for black market or things and that. Okay, yeah. So this is also not really right thing. Your intention was kind of like a really noble, but while you are trying to execute any kind of like action there is a kind of like a bunch of consequences and things and that. All right, so basically what I'm saying is that na ki this is a kind of like a something I realize like there are kind of like so many things. If I'm trying to talk about this stuff na, why I need to kind of like build such a AI that could predict the future, having that particular kind of like assembly thought, having that particular kind of like assembly that key what might gonna affect on the action in the real world. If we knew that before we implement the action, it would be kind of like a really helpful to kind of like a make sure or execution plan change or maybe something, or maybe kind of like a do it like that way or something like that, so that we would gonna make less mistake or less kind of like assembly like a flaws and things and that, right? So that's why I'm kind of like a building such a AI that could predict the future. Okay, now before I wanted to build such a AI that could predict the future, I wanted to aware of all the possible consequences. Okay, so I went to ChatGPT. I kind of like tell my idea. I said that yeah, I want to build such a AI that could predict the future. Suggest me kind of like hundreds of questions. ChatGPT kind of like suggest me hundreds of questions. This is one of those questions. Now, regarding about this question, the question says that can user delete the artifact? All right, yeah. So what is exactly artifact? What exactly is this thing? So Adam can predict the possible future because of artifact. Okay, what is artifact? Artifact is a kind of like a something that people write the diary every single day. Okay, yeah, but writing a diary is a kind of like a bit more difficult. Okay, it's not so good, and also it's not really possible to write every single day and things and like that. But what if instead of kind of like a writing a diary, what if we could record a diary, like a audio recorder diary? So basically the audio recording, the stuff that you are kind of like listening right now, this is my audio recording, audio diary. I called it my artifact. Okay, yeah. So if I kind of like build such a app where people would kind of like simply record their thoughts regarding about what exactly happened throughout the day and things and that and that and that, they will kind of like share so many good stuff regarding about their life and things and that and that and that. Those are kind of like artifact. Now if the kind of like a people all around the world of the people who are kind of like a recording artifact, so that means I have their data. I have kind of like a data about their behavioral pattern. Okay, yeah. I need a kind of like a so much data, like basically I need at least like a billions of artifact from all around the continent: North, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, Russia. All right, so I need a kind of like a data from every continent of the people, so that I would kind of like track their behavioral pattern regarding about what they think, what they kind of like something that key, what their behavioral pattern regarding about some certain thing and that and that and that. Okay, yeah. So from that particular perspective, because I have that kind of like a data, I would kind of like create a digital copy of the people. Okay, yeah. And from that digital copy, I would kind of like simply use as a kind of like simply as a simulation process, that if I kind of like implement the any kind of like a some action, then how might gonna those digital people will kind of like affect, because those digital people are kind of like something associate with the kind of like a real behavior of the people. Okay, yeah. So how much it kind of like affect, like basically is this, you might gonna get kind of like a lot of probability ratio regarding about how do we supposed to be execute any kind of like a idea, and what might have kind of like every people have kind of like a different opinion regarding about your actions or your noble or your kind of like assembly plan or laws and things and that. Okay, yeah. So from that particular situation, we kind of like do the simulation, and from that simulation we could kind of like execute the possible future. All right, probability in point of perspective. All right. So basically is this thing that that data is actually came from artifact. Okay, yeah. An artifact is a kind of like a people who are kind of like recording the artifact. Now one of the biggest question is that what if people would kind of like delete the artifact, then what? Okay, so there is a kind of like a laws regarding about that. Okay, yeah. So basically if the user kind of like delete their artifact, then it is my kind of like a sole purpose that I have to be kind of like simply remove their artifact. Okay, yeah. I do not have to be kind of like simply put their artifact, like basically if the user kind of like delete the artifact, then I have to be kind of like simply from kind of like from the server I have to be delete that artifact. Like basically is this thing that artifact is not my property. Okay, yeah. I'm just kind of like providing the services. If the user kind of like delete the artifact from the application, then it is my sole purpose to kind of like delete this thing from my server, from my database, from whatever it is. All right, I have to be kind of like simply delete that thing. Okay. So but another question is that if the people kind of like delete the artifact, then probably you might not have that behavioral data, and you might not have that behavioral data, then you might not kind of like simply predict the possible future, right? Well, that is good, that is a kind of like a really thing, but let me tell you one thing, the predicting possible future is not kind of like based on one particular person. Okay, yeah. it is based on kind of like a millions, actually billions of people, billions of artifact and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So if one particular person kind of like a delete his own artifact, it does not really affect that much, but if almost like a thousands of people who are kind of like a deleting their account or deleting their artifact and things and that, then in that situation I might have to be kind of like a simply rethink regarding about why does people kind of like do it like that way. What is actually the reason why does they kind of like do that? Is that any kind of like somebody they kind of like think about me, about my kind of like a platform? Am I kind of like did something wrong? That's why kind of like people are kind of like deleting the artifact and things and that. Oh yeah. Then the this kind of like somebody question is not because of that ki kind of like they deleted. I just have to kind of like figure it out why they deleted. What is exactly that I kind of like did something wrong, or am I kind of like somebody hurt somebody or things and that and that. So in that particular situation I have to kind of like fix that thing. But if like a kind of like a thousands of people who are kind of like simply started deleting their artifact or started deleting their account, then I have to be delete their own their artifact from my server too. But let me kind of like tell you right now, I haven't really built this thing. Okay, if you're listening this thing and if you're thinking that, let me tell you something. Okay, yeah. Obviously if you delete your account, delete your artifact, I have to be delete your artifact from my server, from my database. I have to delete. Okay, that is a particular guarantee. But let me ask you a question. Okay, the whatever your thoughts is like a, you don't know the value of it. Like a one recording might not gonna affect you that much, but if you are kind of like a recording for years and that and that and that, then you have kind of like an entire thought process of what was your kind of like a thinking year ago, things and that and that. I was kind of like a recording artifact for past 11 year, and basically is this thing that now one of the most essential, like let me tell you one thing what exactly happened. Okay, so a couple of years ago my hard disk got corrupted, and because of my hard disk got corrupted, almost like a thousands of artifact is got corrupted too. Okay, and I cannot able to be recover. Thank God I have kind of like a create a backup, and that backup is a kind of like a really helped me to kind of like a recover all my artifact. And then I realized that I cannot rely on external hard drive. Okay, so I started uploading my artifact on YouTube platform, because in the YouTube platform it's not for kind of like a somebody that ki I should supposed to be kind of like let the people see my artifact. No, it's for the kind of like a data storage, because I am kind of like a lack of storage, and probably YouTube storage is kind of like a bit more kind of like a future proof. Okay, yeah, it's not like that ki YouTube will kind of like delete my artifact. They never will. Okay, so that's why I kind of like decided that. Why I decided that? Because I realized that the value. Let me tell you one thing. When you record artifact, you kind of like a feel really good. Okay, yeah. And when you have that kind of like a data of almost like a almost like almost like a month and years of data, then that data is a kind of like really helpful for you. You will knew what exactly happened 5 years ago, what exactly you are thinking, what exactly that, and you are started comparing that. I was kind of like a really stupid that time. Okay, but right now I'm kind of like a feel really good. Like basically what I'm saying is that na ki you are a kind of like a growing. Okay, like a whatever person you are is a kind of like a, let's just say you are best version of yourself. So that means your past version is a kind of like a not best version of yourself. Okay, yeah. So basically you would have kind of like a comparison regarding about that ki where I stand. Am I kind of like a somebody like a growing or not, or things and that and that. Like basically when day to day, when you are kind of like a living the life, we do not have that kind of like a somebody things. We do not have that am I growing up or things and that and that. Let me kind of like tell you. Almost like a 3 year ago, I was kind of like a started recording artifact in English. Okay. Before that, I was kind of like a recording artifact in my regional language. But I realized that I have to be record artifact in English. So I started recording English. So at the beginning, I am so difficult to record artifact in English. It's not really that I do not understand English. I understand, but talking in English and kind of like somebody reading and kind of like understanding English is kind of like two different things. Talking is a kind of like I don't even kind of like a get the words. Like I don't know, and sometimes I still kind of like a do not get any kind of like a words. Right now my English is not really that much kind of like really good. Still it's kind of a little bit dinky, but I'm kind of like proud of myself that I'm kind of like doing this thing, and I'm kind of like somebody getting as much as kind of like speaking as good as English. That's why you are kind of like listening till now. Okay, yeah. So basically, is this thing now, because of the artifact, I started kind of like speaking English, and it adds so much amount of value inside of me. Obviously, right now I'm kind of like simply not in really good place where I could supposed to say I'm really good. Like I'm kind of like a 33. I'm living with my parents. I'm not really earning any kind of like some new money. From visual point of perspective, I'm kind of like look like stupid, which is true. But my like a mind is a kind of like a bit more evolved. I understand the life, I understand scenario. I'm kind of like a thinking about I could able to be build such a product that could kind of like a predict the future. It is like a really big, really massive. Okay, and I could able to do such a thing. It make me kind of like a feel really good. All right. So basically ask your question that key, are you deleting your artifact just because of you wanted to delete, or you are kind of like deleting because of you got kind of like influenced by somebody and things and that. Like look into it. You kind of like a recorded almost like a months of data regarding about your thought process and things and that. It will definitely gonna add a value in the future when you monetization actually happen. Like basically artifact monetization is kind of like a bit more different. I already explained regarding about how does kind of like artifact monetization will gonna happen. So basically, if you kind of like delete, it might gonna affect your monetization too. You might gonna earn little bit less, something like that. Okay, I don't know. Am I kind of like stupid? I don't know. Okay, I haven't really built anything, but this is just my recommendation to not to delete your artifact. Okay, yeah, just kind of like a things. But if if you wanted to delete, obviously I have to be delete. Like it is my sole purpose to kind of like remove your artifact from database. Yeah, that is the kind of like a things. But I have to be kind of like understand that key. Why are you kind of like doing this thing? Like basically is this thing now, whatever the kind of like a stuff that I'm kind of like a saying, you are kind of like a thinking that I'm kind of like a very evil, kind of like a taking people's data and kind of like a simply using for kind of like a solely like a fire for my own good purposes. Yeah, because of the Adam, I might gonna earn so much amount of money. That is true. And also I will not gonna give you money. I will not gonna give that money to you. Okay, yeah. I'm kind of like a being really upfront. And because of this thing, I might be kind of like a so rich person that I have kind of like so much amount of money. Okay. But let me tell you something. Okay. That key, my purpose is not to kind of like a basically is this thing that na ki, if you are thinking that ki adding value means like that getting money, then that is wrong, dude. Like a really wrong. If you wanted to kind of like a improve your life, make your life a little bit better and things and that money is not actually that kind of like life get little bit better is not because of you have money. It is because of you have value. Chase the value, not money. Because when you have value, when you have a kind of like a some sort of skills, talent, or whatever it is, it will gonna add value in you even if you don't really have money. Look at me. I'm kind of like a stupid enough, like I'm 33, living with my parents, not earning any kind of like a money. Like basically my parents are kind of like a fighting all the time, but I'm still kind of like a thinking that's one of the crazy future that no one kind of like a believes that thing. And I'm kind of like I completely agree with this thing, but still I'm kind of like a doing that thing. Still I'm kind of like a saying this thing artifact because I believe in myself. I have faith in myself. I believe that I could able to do, and from that belief, from that thing, I am kind of like a build such a future that might gonna kind of like add so much amount of value. You are the kind of like a clear evidence. That's why you are kind of like listening this artifact. Okay, like basically, why do you kind of like listening this artifact? Like basically, artifact work. I kind of like somebody established something because of the artifact. That's why you are kind of like listening this thing now. And regarding about the money, like basically why I cannot able to give you directly money, because as I mentioned, when I kind of like give you free money, I will kind of like make you more poorer or make you kind of like a less productive. Okay, yeah, just understand this thing. Okay, money is like when you earn money through your effort, through your hard work, that money add gonna value to you. Okay, but if you earn money for free, then it will kind of like break you, literally break you. I'm kind of like telling from my words and telling from my experience and things and that. Still, regarding about the question says that can user delete the artifact? Yes, they can. User can able to be delete the artifact. They can also kind of like delete their account too. Okay, yeah. And obviously when they delete, obviously I have to be kind of like remove their data from database. All right, yeah. And does it kind of like affect on Adam? yeah, it does affect. Okay, yeah, because if kind of like some people kind of like delete their artifact and things and that I will lost kind of like their behavioral data, and if I lost their behavioral data, then I cannot do anything at all, right? Yeah, so yeah, probability might gonna get little bit less accurate, but still I'm living in the world, and I don't want, like, I don't want to create such a product that kind of like a simply that people are not kind of like people are kind of like a thing that ki like like people think that ki this product is not really good and think like, I don't know, I kind of like a building such a product that meant to be best for the humanity, not for kind of like assembly against. I don't want to do any kind of like assembly against without each other. If the government are kind of like not letting me access their citizen of data, it is also fine for me, because still I believe that ki usually I am not the whole responsible for their citizen. The government are kind of like a decided something for a reason, and I have to be accept this thing. If they're not letting me to access their citizen of data to the behavioral pattern for Adam, then I also follow that thing too. I am not. I shouldn't supposed to be like basically. Yeah, it is my kind of like a thing is that I'm kind of like can convince them to not to do that thing. But if they're not convinced, then obviously I shouldn't supposed to be use their citizen of data to kind of like a things like that and that. Does it gonna affect on Adam? Yeah, it does affect. Okay, I'm gonna lost almost like a country's people's of behavioral data, and the prediction might not be accurate. And yeah, all right, so yeah, I aware of consequences might gonna happen, but still I have to be agree, and I'm not gonna do any kind of like a monkey business, definitely not. All right, so this is it, and thank you.